Hi guys, I'm Ahana and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through a typical week in the life as a founder. If that sounds good to you, then keep on watching. So I'm going to start with the rather cliche / annoying statement that no 2 weeks are ever the same. My job as the founder and as a CEO is to serve the company according to where the business needs are. And invariably, the business needs change at different stages of the company's life cycle. So when I just got started, it was all about doing user interviews, scoping out the problem and coming up with solutions, brainstorming. Then when it came to actually developing the app, it was all my time spent writing code heads down. Then when it came to fundraising, pretty much all I did was take investor meetings and fulfill due diligence requests. Right now at Clear, we're at a bit of an interesting inflection point where we've actually achieved some of the retention targets and product targets that we set out for the app, which means that we're now at a stage where we started thinking more about growing the user base and our brand partnerships. I'll also be bringing on a large cohort of around 30 interns this summer, so there's also currently some preparation work around that. So those are my immediate company priorities. And with that, let me walk you through what a week in my life is like. So first, I'm just going to go through my general approach of organizing my week. Now, I am not too far short of a slave to my calendar, and specifically, I employ the time blocking technique. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with time blocking, essentially it means that you use your calendar as your to-do list. So every task that you have to do, you put in your calendar, and you allocate a set block of time to complete that task. Doing things this way helps you prioritize. You can see when things need to be done. It's particularly helpful if certain tasks are time urgent and have deadlines because, again, you can prioritize things visually according to when different tasks need to be completed. And it also allows you to provide an estimate of how long that task will take. If you just have a never-ending to-do list and no idea how long the tasks will be, you can be setting yourself up for something quite unproductive. So this way, if it's just, sending an email or a follow-up, you can put that in as a 5-minute task in the calendar, versus if it's a solid chunk of code you need to write or a really technical problem that you need to solve, that may take longer. And it's helpful to block that time out in your calendar to make sure that you can actually get all of your tasks done while maintaining realistic goals for your work. Now, I don't just time block my work. I believe in work-life integration, and I talked in my last video about how being a founder can be all-consuming, and it's really important to have a sense of work-life balance. And for me, the only way that I can achieve that is by being very intentional about that balance and making sure that I actually make time for it. So my calendar doesn't just serve me for my work hours, it serves me for all hours of my life. And yes, that means I schedule my meal times, my sleep, my fitness, my social events, and anything even on my personal to-do list, I put it in my calendar. There are also some repetitive events in my life and my work that need to get done quite frequently. For me, the biggest one is probably communication. So my emails, my LinkedIn messages, my WhatsApps. My inboxes always have a flow inward, and responding to all my messages could be a full-time job in itself. So it's really important to put boundaries in place and not just do my comms work ad hoc, because otherwise that could take up my entire day. So I time box 1 hour at the start of every day for this task of getting through all of my communications from the day before. I mentioned that one of the current priorities is growing the user base, and so my second daily repetitive task is creating 3 TikToks a day. Now, I block 15 minutes for each TikTok, and that 15 minutes covers the ideation process, the filming, the editing, and the posting, and I post across TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. I aim for 3 a day, and so that takes 45 minutes of my days currently. At other stages, there have been other repetitive tasks. So for example, in the past when I was raising, I would block a certain amount of time every day to fulfill due diligence requests and top up my FAQ section for investors and make sure my data room was up to date. Really early on, when I was first developing the product, I would block at least an hour every day to making sure that I was just talking to users and gathering product feedback. So these tasks change depending on what the company needs, but right now, my emails and comms work and my TikToks are my 2 daily repetitive tasks that get blocked in my calendar. So now, with all of that said, let's dive into what a week actually looks like for me. And I'm going to be slightly controversial and start by talking about my Sundays. The reason I'm going to start with Sundays is because this is my preparation day. I use my Sundays to prepare for the week ahead of me. So in my calendar, I time block 60 minutes every Sunday evening to actually plan out my week and do my time blocking activities for the next week. What this does is it really helps me think about what are the priorities. It can be quite easy to just do busy work as a founder, and every week I want to make sure that I have a clear goal and there are clear priorities that I need to achieve by the end of the week. So this exercise every Sunday gives me great mental clarity about what I need to do. And it also helps me very practically plan out when I'm going to be doing everything so that I can actually get everything done. What it looks like in practice is I'll just open my calendar and I will drag and drop all the different tasks that I have. I will stretch them out according to how long they'll take. And to ensure some balance, I'll also make sure for the most part that I can eat all my meals and I get some movement in every day. This is also the time where I'll book my workout classes, book train tickets, respond to friends regarding social events, and see what I can actually make time for in the week ahead. And then when my Monday morning rolls around, I'm ready to go. There's no decision paralysis. There's no real thinking about what I need to do. The first thing I'll do is I open my calendar and all of my tasks are laid out for me. And I just do what my calendar tells me to do. So just for simplicity, I'm going to walk you through last week in my calendar. Starting with the Sunday, I actually was working that full Sunday because it was the Sigma Squared Summit. Sigma Squared is one of the amazing communities that I'm part of that's for young founders, and Sigma fellows from all over the world had flown in, and it was an incredible weekend of learning and having some really interesting conversations and panel talks. So that was an all-day event, and then in the evening I got around to my weekly planning. Then Monday was actually the spring bank holiday in the UK, and for a long time in my founder journey I didn't take bank holidays, but especially given that I worked the full weekend for the week prior, I did decide to take my bank holiday Monday. However, I did have a few small tasks that weren't too mentally taxing that I needed to get done. So I have in my calendar here, I needed to follow up with somebody specific on LinkedIn regarding a brand partnership. I still made time for all my emails, and I had to issue payroll. So that was in my calendar. I blocked time for lunch, and then I did a strength class in the evening. And then I also had a phone call scheduled with my friend in the evening as well. So even though that's technically a Monday, that's more typically what my weekend would look like. So then we'll come to Tuesday. I started my day at 8 a.m. and from 8 till 9, I got through my emails and comms that had piled up from the day before. Then I had a small to-do item, which was adding one of the investors that I'd met the week prior at an event to my investor tracker, because she'd offered that when the time comes to fundraise to get back in touch with her. And if I don't add her to my investor tracker, I will not remember to reach out to her. So I just had to add her to my tracker. Then I had the task of planning the summer internship that we're running at Clear. So I could probably make a whole other video on how I run internships. If that's something you want to see, please let me know. But essentially I conduct interviews, and it's very important to me to understand exactly what the intern wants to learn out of the experience and how we can align Clear's business needs to really make it the best for both parties, making sure that Clear gets the value, but also they get the value as an individual navigating their own careers. So I take their suggestions and their wants and needs very, very seriously during the interview process. And it does mean that there is some coordination that needs to happen around actually thinking, what do we need to get done and how can this person actually help with that? So from 9:05 to 10:30, that's what I did. Then at 10:30, I had a briefing call for a podcast that I'll be shooting in a couple weeks' time, just to learn more about the format, some of the logistical details, and go through some of the questions that we'll be discussing in the actual podcast episode. Then at 11, I had my sprint planning meeting with my CTO. So we work in 2-week tech sprints. This is part of the agile terminology and the agile workflows. So every 2 weeks, we talk about what the product and tech priorities are. We evaluate how the previous sprint went and just make sure that we're fully aligned for the next 2 weeks ahead of us. So that took an hour. We walked through all of the issues that we documented on GitHub. We spoke again about what the company priorities really are from a product perspective and what we need to prioritize tech-wise. One of the things that we established in our sprint planning was that we actually didn't have any UX requirements, and we normally do have a weekly UX meeting with our UX designer who's based in Sydney. But because we didn't need anything designed, I made sure to communicate that with our designer and just make a note that we've cancelled our next 2 UX meetings so that we don't lose track of how many meetings we've had. And I also had another question for my UX designer, which was related to the internship planning. Some of our incoming interns will be helping with creating some design assets. So I wanted to ask our UX designer if she had any thoughts on some of the assets that they should work on. So I followed up on that question in our Slack. I had another follow-up item from the Sigma Summit conference. One of the speakers was someone that I had met twice previously at different events, and I'd been meaning to reach out to her. I'd seen some of her work out and about in London, and so I'd just made a note to send her a quick note of appreciation, letting her know that I really enjoyed her panel talk, and we unfortunately didn't get to speak at the weekend at the summit, but I just sort of wanted to keep up that relationship, so I sent her a very quick email. And then I also spent about 10 minutes preparing for a meeting that I had later in the day with an incredible company called Potion AI. They're in a similar space in the sense that they're also also in the beauty industry, but where Clear connects the consumers with the cosmetic formulators and brands, Potion connects the cosmetic formulators with the chemical companies and suppliers. And so they're at a slightly different part of the value chain, but there's a lot of amazing collaboration opportunities, and they also are backed by Y Combinator. So we have a lot in common. And so I just wanted to take 10 minutes to learn about what they do and prepare some potential ideas for collaboration that I could propose in the meeting that I had later in the day. Then at 1 p.m, I took a break from my work and I did a TRX class for 30 minutes. It was great. It was a full body exercise with a little bit of cardio, nice way to break up the day. And then from 1:30 till 2, I had my lunch. Then at 2 p.m, I had some materials I needed to submit for one of the startup competitions that we're currently in. It's called the UK Startup Awards, and Clear was very fortunate to be voted a finalist. And so the grand final will be in September, and prior to then, they'd asked for some supporting information and to record a short video pitching the idea. So I did that from 2 to 3 p.m. Then at 3 p.m, it was time for my daily TikToks. So from 3 till 3:45, that's what I did. And then for the remaining 15 minutes of that hour, I actually went and was responding to some TikTok comments, because what I've seen has worked well on TikTok is actually building a real sense of community. And most of my content is all around acne and skin issues and Accutane and using Clear to actually aid you in that process. And I'd received quite a few questions and I wanted to make sure that I actually addressed them. Then at 4:30, I went to the gym. And for the first 30 minutes, I started with some interval running. So I've recently got into running. I'm trying to increase my speed. And so intervals are basically where you go really fast for a short period of time. And then I do walks in between. So roughly 30 seconds of sprinting and then 30 to 60 seconds of walking in between. I did that for 30 minutes. And then at 5 p.m, I did an upper body strength class. By the time I'd got back home and showered, it was 6 p.m. and time for my meeting with Potion. And that was absolutely amazing. I got on super well with the founder. And we had scheduled 30 minutes for it, but it actually went on for about 60 minutes instead. So it did throw my calendar off a little bit, but it is super important to maintain some level of flexibility. And of course, the calendar and the time blocking helps in roughly structuring your thoughts and your priorities. But this was an example of things didn't go exactly to plan, but it was such an informative meeting, it was worth running over slightly. So that went on from 6 till 7 p.m. and then at 7 p.m. I had dinner. I was done with dinner by 8, and from the Potion meeting, I promised the founder that I would send our blurb in case he could help me with any introductions, and I had offered him the same if he wanted to send me his blurb and I would share it out. So I made sure to hold up my end of the deal and I sent him along our details. And then from around 8:30 p.m. I continued on with the internship planning and task assignment, and while I was doing that, I realized that one of the action items that me and my CTO needed to do was give all of our interns access to our database, and for that our CTO needed all of their emails. So I just compiled all of that information for our CTO so that while I'm sleeping he can have this list and actually get started on that task of his. So on Tuesday I ended up finishing work at about 10:30 and I was in bed by 11. And remember, I do schedule my sleep into my calendar and I try to get in bed by 11 p.m. So then Wednesday rolled around, again from 8 till 9 I did my daily email and LinkedIn message ritual, and at 9 a.m. I got back to the internship planning. And by this stage I'd done most of the planning and project assignment, and I actually had to start writing up the project briefs. So I did that until 11 for 2 hours. At 11, I had my daily stand-up with my CTO just to chat about what we did the day before, what our goals were for the upcoming day, and if we were stuck on anything. So once that was done, at 12, I had my weekly open office hours. That's something that I run every week, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. And that's really how I like to give back to founders. I've created a community where we all just come along, we introduce ourselves over a Zoom call, and we talk about what our challenges are and brainstorm solutions together. It's really one of the highlights of my week. So I had that from 12 till 1. Then from 1 till 1:45, I did my TikToks. And then in the 15 minutes after that, instead of responding to TikTok comments, I was actually doing some community management on Clear and responding to people's messages and questions on Clear and welcoming new members to the community. Then from 2 till 2:30, I had lunch. And from 2:30 to 6, I continued on with the intern project briefings. Bear in mind, there were about 30 projects, so there was quite a lot of work to get through with this. Then at 6 p.m, I took a break from the intern project briefings and I did a 30-minute full body strength class. And then from 6:30 to 8, I had dinner. Then from 8 till 10, you guessed it, I was back to doing the internship project briefings. And I also had promised from the day before that I would make an introduction for Potion to a chemicals company that I knew. So I went ahead and made that intro. I had also promised another podcaster I know an intro to a founder, so I went ahead and made that. And there was also an email lurking in my inbox that I didn't quite get around to answering in the morning about a brand partner that had reached out and wanted to meet. And so I responded to that and got that meeting scheduled with that brand as well. And at this point, I probably should have gone to sleep, but I had another niggling task of writing out my LinkedIn posts, and I like to batch write them. I take my LinkedIn posting very seriously. It's part of my work, it's part of my job, it's what gets me in front of investors and brands. And so from around 10:30 to 1:30, I ended up drafting LinkedIn posts until the end of the month. So that was about 10 LinkedIn posts. Then Thursday rolled around. I hadn't slept super well, so I probably shouldn't have done this, but I went out on a 5K tempo run. It wasn't great. I was pretty tired and underslept. And then by 8 a.m. I was ready to start again on my emails. Then at 9, I actually did a little bit of preparation for an event that I was going to later in the day, in which I knew I'd be meeting a lot of doctors, and one of our areas of growth and partnerships is with dermatology clinics. So I just did a little bit of research into some of their existing solutions and properly formulated some customer discovery questions, if you will, that I knew that I could ask to the dermatologists and the doctors that I'd be meeting later in the day. Then at 11, I had a meeting with Evelyn Partners, which is a financial advisory company, and they will be hosting an amazing networking event for founders and investors in a couple of weeks' time. And I wanted to connect with the organizer ahead of time just to learn about sort of who is in their network, who would be coming to that event, and what value I could gain from that. So that was another super helpful meeting. And the person that I met with was incredibly generous with his time and introductions, and ended up introducing me beforehand to two of the people that are quite relevant for our business and have great connections in the beauty space. And then at 12, I had my daily stand-up with Charles, our CTO. As we do every day, went through the updates from the day before, what the plan is for the day ahead, and anything that we're stuck on. Then from 1 to 1:30, I ate my lunch, and at 1:30, it was time for my daily TikToks. So I was done with that by 2:15. And then for the next 2 hours, I ended up doing some more technical work. There were a couple of coding-related issues that had been assigned to me for this sprint, and so I worked on those. And then at 4:30, went to the gym, did some incline walks for 30 minutes, and then at 5 did another full body strength class. Then I came home, showered, got ready, and I had this event which was hosted by the Bay HQ, which is a British Asian entrepreneurs collective, in collaboration with another organization called Doctorpreneurs, which is for doctors who are either existing or aspiring entrepreneurs. And for me, being the founder of Clear, which is a tech company but also has medical applications with doctors, it was the ideal networking event. And I met so many amazing people at that, and the connections I made that night were of so much value, especially given our current priority on relationships and partnerships with dermatologists. So I got back from that at around 10:30 p.m. and I went to sleep at around 11. Then Friday morning, 8 till 9, you guessed it, more emails. And from 9 till 11, I continued working on some of the technical issues. In particular, what I was working on was updating our welcome email. So when you sign up to Clear, you get an automated email that welcomes you to the app and explains some of the features, except that has not been changed once since I launched the app, and so it is massively due an upgrade. And so I'm basically building that from scratch again, rewriting all the HTML to have a new welcome email. Then at midday, I had a barbells fitness class, which is one of my favorites. It's all barbell based movements and it's a full body exercise. And then after that, I did a 5K run on the treadmill. And so then I got back, showered, had lunch, and then I did my TikToks. And by the time I was done with that, it was already 3 p.m. Then the next task I had to do was an admin related task regarding one of the vendors that we use, one of the SaaS subscriptions we have. They're increasing the pricing, unfortunately. And so I needed to do a bit of research into what the alternative solutions are, or negotiate with them if they could give us a better deal. I did both. Unfortunately, we have decided to move, but I had to make a decision on that. So in my calendar, the task was make a decision about X. I won't name the vendor. And then for the rest of my Friday, I was editing YouTube videos. So with my YouTube, it's just me creating these videos. So I dedicated Friday, late afternoon, early evening to editing the video for the week ahead. So that's actually editing the video portion, creating the thumbnail, writing out the description, coming up with the title, outlining the chapters, all of that jazz. And on Friday, fortunately, I wasn't working too late, so I was all done with work at 7, and I had a lovely dinner out in London with my family. Then the weekend rolled around, and because I had worked the full previous weekend, and I had sort of taken the bank holiday on Monday, but it still wasn't like a complete day off, I was quite determined to try and reset as much as I could this weekend. So I did a full body fitness class at 10 a.m. on the Saturday, and then I came back and napped. I was pretty exhausted from the whole week before. And then on Sunday, I had a bit of a lie-in, and at around 11, I ended up doing a nice outdoor 12K run around London. It was amazing. The weather was gorgeous. I got back, and my family and I had plans to explore Spitalfields Market. So we spent the whole afternoon there. I had some amazing birria tacos, and I tried humble crumble for the first time, which is an apple crumble with custard. It was really, really nice. And then got back, did my weekly planning, and got ready for the next week ahead. So that's it. That's what a week in my life looks like. Hopefully this gives you some insight into the kinds of things that founders do, and hopefully a holistic insight into my life as well. And that's where I'm going to leave this video. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more videos just like this, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Alright, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.